night is quiet, almost too quiet, the sort of hush that settles over your room just after you press play on a history video you'll pretend to watch. Outside, a breeze gently whispers its secrets to the leaves, while inside, your eyes blink slower and slower, like a candle's last flickers. You've made a solid choice tonight. We're heading back nearly 700 years to a world where camels were the trucks. Gold was practically glittering out of people's ears, and kings didn't just rule. They performed wealth like it was a global sport. But take it slow. You probably won't make it through this day. And that's the point. Before we wander too far into the golden dunes, do me a quiet favor. Tap that like button as gently as a court scribe turning a parchment page. If you feel like it, subscribe. No royal decree necessary. And because I'm curious in a cozy way, drop a comment with your current location and local time. It's oddly charming to know where people fall asleep, to a story about a guy who once gave out so much gold, he nearly ruined an economy. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. You walk beneath the rising heat of a West African morning. Sand clings to your sandals, soft and fine like ground cinnamon. The sky stretches endlessly above you, pale blue and yawning. Somewhere behind you, faint laughter echoes. Market women greeting the day with gossip that could rival any 14th century court drama. You're in the city of Timbuktu, and no, it's not made up. It's a bustling hub of trade, scholarship, and mildly judgmental goats. Around you, tall earthen walls absorb the sun, and above them loom minarets made of mud brick and wood, spiked with wooden beams that look like the ribs of some sleepy architectural beast. This is the Mali Empire, a sprawling land of gold, stories, and extremely long walking distances. You pass a caravan leader chewing on a date, his face weathered by wind and negotiation. He doesn't notice you, but his camel does. The camel glares, which is what camels do by default. There's a rumor they once smiled, briefly, in 1324, during the journey we're about to relive. Because you're here to follow the footsteps of a man named Mansa Musa, Emperor of Malay, occasional economic wrecking ball, and one of the wealthiest people to have ever lived. Yes, ever. Historians still debate the true scale of his wealth, mostly because counting pre-modern gold hoards is like trying to weigh fog. But whatever the amount, it was enough to cause an international headache. One cultural tidbit. Before we go further, ancient West African griots, oral historians, sometimes recited genealogy through music. Entire family trees, sung like lullabies or warnings, depending on the branch. You stroll past a courtyard filled with low voices and lazy dust. The morning is waking up, but you don't need to. You just drift, slowly, as if your sandals are carrying you without permission. Tomorrow, Mansa Musa sets out on his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca. But tonight, the city hums quietly, like it knows something is coming. And so do you. You rise with the sun, though not by choice. A group of boys is singing outside your window. Something about salt, trade routes, and a goat that got away again. The lyrics are unclear. The beat, infectious. Your room smells of roasted millet and cedarwood. It's small, cool, and dimly lit. The kind of room you only need for sleeping and staring out at history. Outside, the city is shifting into motion. Market stalls unfold like sleepy origami, and camels are being loaded with water, dates, and of course, gold. Not coins. No, we're talking bricks, ingots, solid bars, each one carried with the sleepy indifference of people used to being absurdly rich. You follow the sound of chanting, low and rhythmic, as you wander toward the royal procession. Today, Mansa Musa begins his journey to Mecca, a spiritual trek known as the Hajj, which Muslims undertake to demonstrate their devotion. Most people make this trip with modest means and dusty sandals. Musa? He's doing it with 1,000 people, dozens of scribes, hundreds of slaves, and roughly 100 camels, all weighed down with literal treasure. A minor economic footnote. Gold was so plentiful in Mali at this time that it wasn't rare. It was just annoyingly heavy. You arrive just as the procession begins to move. It's more than a line of travelers. It's a walking palace. Musa sits under a golden parasol, fanned by attendants, wearing robes that could fund a small city-state. His face is calm, focused, deeply bored in the way only someone absurdly rich can be when about to walk across the Sahara. Somewhere nearby, a scholar squints at his notes. We're not exactly sure why he brought so much gold, he mutters to no one. Perhaps to impress Cairo, or to flex, or maybe he just didn't trust banks. The air smells of dust, musk, and faintly of regret from the camels. You trail behind the caravan, watching young boys scatter flower petals on the ground. Flowers that had to be imported, because desert blossoms are not exactly known for their availability. One camel collapses in protest, its load of ivory and fabric slightly askew. No one panics. This happens roughly every 20 miles. Obscure tidbit of the day. Malian traders sometimes flavored their water with baobab seeds to help survive long desert treks. A gritty, earthy taste, sort of like tea brewed in a sandal. You walk past a man polishing a gold bracelet with a feather. He's singing softly in Bambara, something about a river spirit and an argument with a fish. The lyrics are probably metaphorical, or maybe just weird. Hard to say. The horizon wavers with heat, and your thoughts begin to drift. How does one casually give away so much gold that it disrupts multiple economies? That's what Mansa Musa will do in Cairo. Too generous, too rich, or just really bad at budgeting. You hear laughter from behind. A young servant trips and spills saffron powder into the sand. A breeze picks it up, and for a moment, the air glows like gold. Then it vanishes, as if the desert decided it didn't want to sparkle after all. By late afternoon, the caravan has only made a few miles. These aren't people in a rush. This is wealth, moving at the speed of ceremony. As dusk settles, you rest beside a watering hole, watching the sky turn a smoky lavender. A flute plays in the distance. The sound is crooked and slow, like a lullaby sung by someone halfway asleep. You lie back. The sand is surprisingly cool beneath you. A camel sighs nearby, sounding mildly disappointed in your life choices. The stars begin to blink on above you, one by one. Tomorrow, the journey continues. But tonight, you dream of gold, dust, and parades that move slower than bedtime. You wake up to the sound of sloshing. It's not the ocean. Wrong continent. Wrong story. It's a massive water skin being hauled up and over a groaning camel's back. The poor thing sways slightly, resigned to another day of serving someone else's travel dreams. The sun is still low, but the heat is already doing its gentle stretch. Your face feels like you slept inside a wool blanket left on a rock. Nearby, a servant is brushing sand off a golden censer, as if the sand is the problem in a desert. You rejoin the caravan. The rhythm of the day is predictable. Wake, load, walk, complain, load again. Sip something vaguely bitter from a calabash gourd. Try not to trip on a ceremonial rug. someone laid out for reasons that remain unclear. Today, the landscape begins to shift. The dunes smooth out into a hard, cracked earth that crunches underfoot. Somewhere far to the north lies the vast Sahara. But first, the group must reach the city of Walata, a last outpost of civilization before the endless sand. You pass the time counting camels. You lose track around 73, not because they move too fast, but because they all look like they're judging you. Somewhere in this group is a camel that carried nothing but silk cushions and incense. No one remembers why. It just got promoted one day. A traveler next to you, a scholar wrapped in indigo-dyed robes, speaks softly. Do you know Mansa Musa gave out so much gold in Cairo? The price of gold dropped for over a decade? You nod politely. Yes, you do know. That's the headline. But here, in the slow churn of the caravan, it feels less like a headline and more like the weight of every step. Cultural tidbit of the day. In some West African ceremonies, griots were given monkeys as gifts, not for labor, just as conversation pieces. History is unclear on whether the monkeys appreciated this. A faint hum drifts through the caravan, a prayer chant layered over the jangle of gold bangles and the creak of wooden wheels. One man carries an ornately decorated Quran in a jeweled case. It's tied to his belt with a cord of braided leather and what might be lion whiskers. You decide not to ask. You reach Walata by late afternoon. The gates are tall and sun-bleached, carved with symbols of hospitality and trade. Inside, it's a maze of ochre-colored homes, flat rooftops, and children playing tag with wooden sticks. Some vendors are selling smoked fish, which is impressive given the nearest ocean is nowhere near here. Mansa Musa is greeted like a demigod. The local chief bows, gestures toward the offering of dates and silver coins. Musa nods, says little, but his camels grunt meaningfully in return. Historians still debate whether Musa's overwhelming generosity was religious devotion or a pre-social media PR stunt. Either way, it worked. That evening, as the sun sinks behind the low walls of Walata, the entire caravan rests. Fires crackle. A pot of spiced millet bubbles nearby. You sit cross-legged in the dust, chewing dried figs and listening to someone describe a crocodile they once saw in the Niger River that could speak 3 dialects. You don't question it. That's not tonight's mission. You lie down beneath the stars. A camel lumbers past, silhouetted in the moonlight, looking profoundly unimpressed by human affairs. You close your eyes. The air smells like dates, sandalwood, and old leather. Tomorrow, the desert begins. You awaken with a mouthful of dry air and a vague sense that your eyebrows might be sunburned. Walata is already stirring. Roosters shouting at the wrong species, children darting between tents, and someone loudly arguing with a chicken. It's unclear who started it. The caravan is preparing for the Sahara. This means triple-checking water supplies, tying extra cloth around your head, and watching grown men try to convince camels that, no, this isn't optional. You linger at the edge of the crowd, where traders are making last-minute deals. One man is trying to sell blessed sand in tiny pouches. Another swears that a jar of honey he's offering once belonged to a holy man. It's half crystallized and has a bee still in it, probably authentic. You depart late morning, the sun already ambitious and unrelenting. The landscape changes quickly. Sand becomes horizon. The wind becomes dry and snippy. The silence starts to hum. This is the Sahara Desert, infinite, golden, and entirely unimpressed by your human plans. The caravan stretches like a necklace over dunes, each traveler a bead of quiet motion. Mansa Musa rides near the front, wrapped in linen so fine it floats in the breeze. He's not speaking today. Too hot, too regal, possibly both. The camels form a slow, swaying rhythm. Their steps are hypnotic. Left, right, spit. Left, right, glare. You fall into the pattern, your thoughts drifting with the desert wind. Obscure tidbit of the day. To measure distance across the Sahara, traders sometimes used days of thirst as a unit. Not miles, not leagues. Just how many days you'd suffer before finding a well. Charming. By afternoon, the air tastes like copper. You pass a salt caravan coming the opposite direction. Men from the north carrying massive slabs of salt on their camels' backs. You trade a handful of dates for a small chunk. It tastes like the ocean from another lifetime. A scholar in the group mutters about the risks of the desert. Dehydration, bandits, and bad poetry. Worst of all are those who insist on reciting their own verses while we walk. You spot a boy trailing behind the caravan, dragging a stick in the sand, drawing faces that fade instantly behind him. You get it. This journey erases almost everything. Only the gold will be remembered. By nightfall, the group settles on a high dune, hoping for a breeze. Fires are forbidden. Too much light in an open space. But someone produces a tiny oil lamp and tells a story about a woman who once rode a scorpion across the dunes to marry a wind god. Historians, you'll be shocked to hear, do not agree on whether this tale is factual. You lie back against a rolled-up rug and stare at the sky. Stars scream silently above you, huge, clear, and endless. A camel snores gently nearby, breathing in sync with your own. The sand holds the warmth of the day. Your muscles feel heavy, your thoughts drifting toward half-dreams of gold coins, endless dunes, and the sound of drums far, far away. Tomorrow, the wind gets worse. But tonight, the desert lets you rest. The wind arrives before you're fully awake. Not a dramatic gust, just a persistent whisper, like someone trying to give you directions in a language you almost understand. It tickles your ears, moves your blanket, and deposits approximately 1 metric teaspoon of sand directly into your nose. You sit up slowly, as if the sky might tilt if you move too quickly. Around you, the camp is already disassembling, quietly, efficiently, sleepily. Like people who've done this so often, they no longer feel surprised when a camel starts eating a map. The desert stretches out in every direction, a flat expanse of possibility and dehydration. The horizon blurs in that shimmering way that makes you doubt whether anything actually exists past your own eyelids. You begin the day's march. The caravan moves in a single file now. It's safer this way. The wind has teeth, and the sand likes to play tricks, changing the shape of the land, hiding old footprints, whispering, "You didn't pass that rock before, did you?" You glance at Mansa Musa. He's riding high, wrapped head to toe in white linen, looking somehow both royal and sun-weary. A servant fans him with a peacock feather, which might be symbolic, or might just be desperate. Obscure cultural tidbit of the day: some Saharan travelers believed the desert held ancient spirits that followed caravans for sport, occasionally hiding water sources just to test one's patience. Sort of like spiritual pranksters, with a flair for drought. A camel coughs behind you. The sound is horrible, like a tuba filled with gravel and despair. But the animal trudges on, undeterred. They always do. No one respects anything quite like they respect a camel that's seen some things. You pass the remains of an old stone marker, half buried in sand. One of the scribes says it marked a resting point used by a 10th century Berber prince. The prince reportedly died here, not of thirst or violence, but of boredom, possibly apocryphal, possibly relatable. Historians still debate the precise route of Musa's journey through the Sahara. Some maps show one path, others a completely different one. It turns out, people weren't big on GPS in 1324. You chew a bit of dried goat meat, wishing it tasted less like regret. The sun climbs higher. The wind picks up. At one point, the caravan stops, not for a break, but because a ceremonial banner blew off and landed on a cactus. It takes 5 men and 1 argument to retrieve it. By afternoon, the ground shifts again. Sand gives way to cracked, salt-white earth. You've entered the Tanez Road, one of the most desolate regions on the planet. Its name translates roughly to Land of Thirst. Charming. You walk slower now, not out of fatigue. Well, okay, partly, but because the silence deserves respect. It presses down on you, so complete it feels sculpted. A silence so strong, your thoughts echo. At nightfall, the camp forms a tight circle. A few dates are passed around. Someone brews tea with mint leaves, so strong your eyebrows flinch. The stars seem closer here. You wonder if Mansa Musa ever got tired of being followed by so much gold. You lie back in the sand, arms crossed, face to the sky. The moon is a pale coin, flickering in and out of sight behind passing clouds. You close your eyes. The wind hushes. Sleep takes its time. Tomorrow, you'll reach water again. But tonight, you float. The morning is cooler. A rare blessing. The wind has died down to a whisper, and the horizon shows a miracle. A cluster of low trees bending around a pool of water. It's not a mirage. You blink. Slowly. It's still there. The caravan picks up speed. Not quickly, mind you. This is still a 14th century procession, involving camels, ceremonial umbrellas, and a man who once commissioned a solid gold saddle. But there's urgency now. You can almost hear the canteens sighing. You arrive at the oasis of Tuat, a lifeline for countless caravans over the centuries. Palm trees rise from the sand like lazy green fireworks. The water is clear enough to see your reflection, sweaty, sunburned, and vaguely victorious. Mansa Musa dismounts for the first time in days. He walks the perimeter of the oasis, hands clasped behind his back, murmuring prayers of thanks. Behind him, an attendant accidentally drops a satchel of gold dust into the water. The fish will never recover. You wash your hands and face. The water is cold, earthy, and tastes like something that's waited a long time to be useful. The air smells of wet bark, warm stone, and relief. Obscure tidbit. In many Saharan cultures, oasis trees were named like family members. A particularly fruitful date palm might be called Uncle Who Survived the Drought, or Aunt with the Sticky Fruit. History remains unclear on how the trees felt about this. You sit beneath a canopy of woven reeds, sipping tea brewed with desert herbs. It tastes slightly like old mint and fresh mistakes. A griot nearby strums a ngoni and sings of ancient battles, love lost, and a chicken that once defeated a fox in debate. No one questions it. The song is good. You hear rumors around camp. Cairo is still weeks away. Musa plans to give lavish gifts to the Sultan. He will arrive as a king and leave as a legend. Someone says. You nod, or an economic cautionary tale. Depends on the inflation rates. Historians still debate whether the numbers recorded 100 camels, thousands of servants, literal gold rain were exaggerated by traders trying to sell stories. Then again, have you seen the camel saddles? Later in the day, Musa orders a rest. The group sets up camp. Musicians play, scribes write, and cooks prepare stew from a goat that looks suspiciously familiar. You nap under a palm tree, lulled by the warm breeze and the distant thud of camel feet in sand. A bee drifts past, inspecting your sandal before deciding you're not interesting. By dusk, the oasis glows gold in the setting sun. The caravan gathers for prayers. Mansa Musa kneels in the sand, his voice soft and steady, echoed by hundreds. You watch the stars appear again, one by one, like lanterns in an invisible cathedral. You stretch out your legs, eyes half closed. The sound of laughter, prayer, and distant music washes over you like a gentle tide. Tomorrow, the caravan will continue north, but tonight, you dream in gold. The palm leaves rustle you awake, swaying just enough to pretend they're useful as shade. Your face feels baked on one side, slightly pickled on the other. You blink up at the morning sun, which is already giving a performance worthy of an angry spotlight. The oasis begins to shrink behind you. The caravan moves again. You're back on the long ribbon of land that leads ever closer to Cairo, that glittering center of trade, knowledge, and, soon, panic over the price of gold. The camels walk with renewed purpose today. Or maybe they're just grumpier than usual. One of them keeps sneezing, like it has an opinion. You notice something strange. The rhythm of the group has changed. It's no longer just movement for survival. It's motion with anticipation. The kind of buzz you feel before reaching a party. But you've brought too many gifts. And now you're wondering if it's going to be weird. Mansa Musa is unusually quiet. He rides under his ornate parasol, trailed by musicians playing soft notes on flutes and drums that sound like someone gently knocking on an old door. A scholar beside you says, "Do you realize he's about to make Mali famous across the Mediterranean world?" You nod. You've realized. He's the world's most dramatic economic press release. Cultural tidbit of the day. Among some West African nobility, it was considered good luck to travel with a small sculpture of a crocodile. Some were carved from ivory, others from wood. All of them looked perpetually suspicious. You stop briefly for the noon prayer. The sand is hot enough to sear through your cloth shoes. Everyone lines up facing east. The heat warps the air into a shimmering veil. Someone mumbles a verse too quickly and is gently corrected by an elderly man who clearly outranks everyone in both piety and volume. A camel tries to eat someone's turban during the closing salutation. Historians still debate whether Musa's caravan brought 12,000 slaves, as some sources claim. Others say it was closer to 500. It's hard to verify. Very few ancient record keepers specialized in head counts. The group travels late into the afternoon. The terrain shifts again. Rolling dunes giving way to patches of scrub. Dry grasses waving lazily in the breeze, as if unsure whether they count as plants or just suggestions. As the sun begins to fall, you come upon a small outpost, just a few buildings clustered around a stone well. A boy runs out carrying pouches of dates and honey, shouting, "Goldman, Goldman." The caravan camps here, but not all at once. It has stretched too long. The back of the line might not even know you've stopped. You lie down early, The sky is clear tonight, littered with stars like misplaced coins. You fall asleep mid-thought, wondering if it's possible to overdose on gold. Spoiler, history says yes. The road begins to feel less like wilderness and more like approach. You notice it in the way the sky looks, less open, more domesticated. You see it in the caravan's pace, no longer just a survival shuffle, but a coordinated glide. People are brushing their tunics more often, adjusting their headdresses. Someone even wipes down a camel with perfumed cloth. The camel does not appreciate this. Today, the air is clearer, not cooler. Don't be ridiculous, but clearer. The dust settles faster, and your eyes sting less. The breeze carries unfamiliar smells: burned incense, baked brick, boiled barley. Civilization is getting closer. By mid-morning, you pass a group of local traders heading south. Their clothes are worn, their faces sun-beaten, but their eyes widen when they see the parade of gold and silk. One of them mutters a blessing. Another just stares, probably recalculating every business decision he's ever made. One of Musa's attendants, tall, cheerful, missing 2 teeth, tells you stories of past kings who tried the Hajj and failed. One got lost. Another was robbed. One apparently tried to ride a lion. That one is disputed by scholars, but makes a good story. You snack on roasted chickpeas and dried apricots. The salt from the chickpeas tastes like survival. The apricots taste like someone once whispered fruit to a sun-dried stone. Cultural tidbit. Travelers of this era often carried small leather charms inscribed with protective verses from the Quran. These amulets were sometimes stitched into their clothing or worn on cords around the neck. One unfortunate merchant accidentally burned his while cooking lentils. He spent the next 6 days walking backwards, just in case. The caravan crests a small hill, and you catch your first glimpse of a city skyline in the distance. Not Cairo, not yet, but a sign that the Nile is near. And where there is Nile, there is life. Musa smiles, for the first time in days. Just a flicker, but it's real. Perhaps he's thinking of his destination, or perhaps he's imagining the astonished faces of Egyptian nobles when he starts handing out solid gold bricks like they're hotel mints. Historians still debate how much of Musa's generosity was calculated diplomacy and how much was just accidentally rich guy energy. Either way, it was unforgettable. By evening, the caravan reaches a walled village. The locals are wary at first. Then, someone recognizes the royal crest on Musa's saddle. Word spreads like fire in dry grass. Before long, the entire village is out, lining the road, cheering and clapping. A few elders approach with offerings: bread, salt, and a jar of fermented milk so strong it could probably power a small boat. Musa accepts with grace, gifting them bolts of cloth and a small pouch of powdered gold. The economy in this village will be very strange for the next year. You find a quiet spot near the wall and sit down to rest. A group of children runs by, laughing, trying to imitate the stiff-limbed camel gait. One of them ties a bundle of sticks to his back and insists he's a mini gold man. You smile. Above you, the moon rises slowly, round and watchful. You let your eyelids fall, your breathing slow. Tomorrow, the Nile, and soon after, Cairo. But tonight, you sleep in the gentle shadow of a village forever changed by one man's generosity and one camel's gold-stuffed saddlebag that might have leaked just a little. The Nile smells before you see it. It's not a bad smell, just ancient, green, earthy, like wet clay mixed with distant memory. You walk slowly this morning, guided by birdsong and the occasional chorus of frogs that seem far too enthusiastic for this hour. Somewhere ahead, the great river winds lazily across the land, as if it's forgotten it ever had a schedule. The air is heavier now, thick with moisture and anticipation. The desert has finally loosened its grip. You reach the water by midday. It's broad, slow, and quietly smug, like a wise old man who knows everyone will eventually need him. Palm trees sway along its banks, and clusters of houses sit close to the edge, watching boats drift by like gossip. The caravan erupts into activity. Camels grunt with relief. Men shout and splash water on their faces. Mansa Musa remains serene, his robe freshly dusted, his posture straight, as if the entire Sahara hadn't just tried to sandpaper him into a historical footnote. You sit by the river and dip your fingers in. The water is cool and muddy, but it feels like silk. You watch it flow and wonder how many people have knelt here just like this. Pilgrims, traders, soldiers, dreamers, washing away dust before meeting the city. Obscure cultural tidbit. Among some riverfront communities in medieval Africa, it was customary to whistle to the river before crossing it, a sort of polite heads up in case the water spirits were napping. The first boat that arrives is large enough for Musa's inner circle, carved from cedar and coated with tar. You board one of the smaller barges, flat-bottomed and painted with faded blue spirals. It rocks gently as you step on, like it's trying to decide if it likes you. As the boats push off from shore, the whole caravan seems to exhale. The pace of walking is replaced with the slow rhythm of water slapping wood. Someone plays a flute. Another hums a tune about mangoes, though there are no mangoes in sight. Mansa Musa stands at the front of his boat, looking like something between a king and a mirage. His gold bracelets catch the light and scatter it across the water in soft, drowsy flashes. The river seems to lean toward him. Historians still debate whether Musa took the Nile directly into Cairo or stopped in several smaller ports first. Most agree that, regardless of his exact route, the impact was tidal. You pass fishing villages, where locals stop and stare as the golden convoy floats by. One old man drops his fishing pole into the water in disbelief. Another offers a friendly wave, then realizes his hands are covered in fish guts, and just gives a head nod instead. The Nile winds slowly, never in a hurry. Your boat drifts with it. You let your head rest against a sack of cloth, your thoughts softening like riverbank mud. By nightfall, the river is dark and deep, whispering to itself. Fireflies flicker over the water. A servant brings you dates wrapped in fig leaves. You eat two before remembering they were probably meant for someone more important. You don't care. You're warm, full, and half asleep. Tomorrow, Cairo begins to shimmer on the horizon. But tonight, the water rocks you gently, as if history itself wants you to rest. The Nile continues to carry you like a lazy dream. In the pale gray light of dawn, you blink awake to see low buildings rising ahead, mud brick structures and stone towers catching the morning sun. Cairo, at last. You rub your eyes. It almost feels like you floated into a story someone forgot to finish. Boats crowd the riverbank. Fishermen shout to each other in rapid Arabic. Porters haul bundles of goods up slippery steps. Donkeys bray in protest at carts loaded with grain, pottery, and possibly one extremely confused cat. And then comes your caravan. thousands of travelers, camels adorned with bells, fabric, and actual gold. Musicians play bold, confident notes that ripple across the water. The entire procession steps off the boats like a royal tide washing into the city. The people of Cairo stop and stare. A child drops a melon. A merchant fumbles his scales. A scribe nearly walks into a wall while trying to tally what he sees. It's hard to blame them. Mansa Musa's arrival is like watching a palace on legs stroll into town. He walks ahead, calm as ever, robes trailing behind him like silk shadows. Behind him, servants carry sacks of gold dust, as if casually lugging groceries. Obscure tidbit. During this period, Egyptian nobility sometimes powdered their wigs with crushed amber for scent. The trend never caught on in Mali, too messy in the desert wind. As Musa moves through the city, crowds begin to follow, not jeering, not begging, just watching, curious, reverent. It's not every day that someone shows up with a golden entourage and no clear agenda beyond be devout and dazzling. You follow at the edge, occasionally bumped by a camel or a child pretending to be one. The city smells different from the desert. Baking bread, open markets, rose water, and the unmistakable sharpness of city ambition. Historians still debate how much Musa gave away in Cairo. Was it tens of millions in today's currency? Hundreds. The numbers shift like river mist. But what is certain? He gave too much, too fast. Gold flooded the streets. Prices plummeted. Markets hiccuped. And still he gave more. You pass a spice merchant who mutters, "At this rate, cinnamon will cost less than onions." Cairo's ruler at the time, the Sultan al-Nasir, quickly takes notice. There's an awkward protocol tangle. Musa insists he won't meet the Sultan unless officially invited, while the Sultan insists kings shouldn't just waltz in without kneeling. Royal egos, even in linen. Eventually, a compromise is reached. The two meet. Gifts are exchanged. Words are carefully chosen. It's a diplomatic dance. But make no mistake, Musa is the one doing the leading. He presents gold, slaves, horses, and bundles of brocaded fabric. The Sultan, politely stunned, gives honorary titles and possibly a quiet panic attack. Later that evening, you sit on a rooftop overlooking the city. The sun sinks behind minarets and domes. A breeze carries the scent of roasted lamb and fried chickpeas. The gold is everywhere now, in doorways, on wrists, in the glint of candlelight. Cairo is richer than it was yesterday, and yet, somehow, slightly unstable. You close your eyes, listening to the hum of a city wrapped in wealth and wonder. Tomorrow, Musa will visit scholars, schools, and mosques. But tonight, the king sleeps in a foreign palace, and you, just a shadow among many, drift into dreams of coins, camels, and quiet river songs. The sun rises slowly over Cairo, casting long amber beams between spires and overhanging balconies. You wake up on your rooftop perch, greeted by the smell of morning bread and the sounds of merchants preparing to out-haggle each other into exhaustion. You stretch. Your back makes a sound like an old wooden door. Below, the streets are already alive. Donkeys trotting past spice carts. Scribes carrying scrolls under their arms, like toddlers carrying too many blankets. And vendors who apparently believe shouting increases flavor. But today is not about markets. Today, Mansa Musa becomes something more than a tourist. He becomes a patron. You make your way to the Al-Azhar Mosque, one of the most respected centers of Islamic learning in the world. Musa arrives, flanked by scholars, bodyguards, and a camel who seems to be deeply over Cairo's traffic patterns. Inside, the mosque is cool and hushed. The marble floors feel like pressed moonlight beneath your feet. Musa kneels in prayer while his attendants distribute gifts, books, coins, and enough gold to make several modest walls go suddenly missing in the name of renovation. You sit beside a quiet scholar who tells you he funds schools like others fund weddings. Then, after a pause, though sometimes weddings are cheaper. Obscure cultural tidbit. During this era, some Cairo scholars kept parrots in their homes that were trained to recite short verses of poetry. It was charming until the parrots started critiquing guests' grammar. After the prayers, Musa spends hours speaking with religious leaders, debating theology, trade ethics, and how exactly one camel managed to eat a shipment of parchment scrolls. The scholars are impressed, not just with the gold, but with Musa's actual intellect. He isn't just a monarch in fine robes. He listens. He responds. He asks good questions. You wander the courtyard, sipping a sour lemon drink that tastes like being corrected gently. You overhear conversations trailing behind Musa like a parade. His generosity, his manners, his refusal to bow except to God. Historians still debate the philosophical impact of Musa's Hajj. Did it shift perceptions of West Africa as a cultural center? Or was it just another glittering curiosity for the Arab world? The record is cloudy, like most things touched by gold dust and memory. By afternoon, Musa is visiting Cairo's madrasas, learning institutions where students memorize texts by candlelight and debate with the fury of sleep-deprived philosophers. Musa donates more gold, always more. One headmaster faints mid-sentence. You follow behind, increasingly aware that you may never again see this much wealth in motion, or camels in such fine hats. As evening descends, the city softens again. The markets close. The prayers begin. Musa returns to his palace. You return to your rooftop, your thoughts stretched and slow, like the linen drying on nearby clotheslines. The night is warm, and Cairo glows. Tomorrow there will be rumors. But tonight, the city dreams of gold. It starts with a whisper, two vendors arguing over the price of pomegranates. One blames the other for selling too cheap because of that gold man. Then a scholar tells a student, "Yes, but can you afford ink now?" Then a banker mutters to his friend, "You can't buy loyalty with inflation." And suddenly, it's not whispers anymore. The gold that fell like blessings has started to behave like sand in the gears. Cairo, once stunned into silence, is now doing math. And the math isn't polite. You walk past a money changer's stall. His expression is equal parts stress and acid reflux. He's surrounded by gold coins, but they sparkle with all the cheer of wet laundry. He gave too much, he says to no one in particular. Now it's worth less. I should have invested in onions. Obscure tidbit of the day. Cairo's economic scribes used to record price fluctuations on reed scrolls, with black ink for increases and red ink for losses. Legend has it, one scroll from this month was completely red. You follow the scent of heated argument to a coffee house where merchants and moneylenders gather to explain, loudly, how exactly the Malian delegation broke the system with kindness. Someone draws a diagram in spilled cardamom. It's not helpful. Meanwhile, Mansa Musa remains calm. He continues to fund schools, feed the poor, and quietly ignore the ripple effect of gold in markets that hadn't seen this kind of supply since Cleopatra was still sending letters. Historians still debate whether Musa realized the economic impact of his giving. Some say he was warned. Others believe he tried to fix it on the way back by borrowing gold, hoping to balance the markets he'd tilted. Generous, yes. Economically strategic? Debatable. The Sultan al-Nasir calls a meeting. It's a closed-door affair. Hushed voices, hand gestures, and one servant who spills honey on a silk carpet and nearly gets spiritually excommunicated. When Musa leaves the palace that day, he seems lighter, not physically, just aware, as if he's learned the cost of generosity in real time. Cairo has loved him, feared him, and now quietly resents him. You sit by the river that night, watching lanterns drift across the water. Some carry prayers, others, coins. One camel lingers at the edge, staring at the glowing reflections, like it's waiting for an apology from economics itself. A boy sits beside you. He gave away so much, he says, and still, we want more. You nod. That's always the way of gold. The wind carries the smell of cinnamon and charcoal. The city hums, slower now. Tomorrow, Musa begins preparations to leave. But tonight, Cairo lies awake under a sky full of stars and price tags. You wake to the sound of folding fabric, the kind of heavy, ceremonial fabric that doesn't so much fold as sigh. Robes, banners, rugs and tents. Everything must be packed again. The city has been visited. The gold has been distributed. The scholars have been dazzled. The economy has, well, survived. Mostly. Now comes the long return. The Nile sparkles in the morning light, indifferent to human comings and goings. Boats are being loaded again. Camels snort and look offended, correctly anticipating what's next. Mansa Musa stands near the water, speaking softly to his advisors. His expression is unreadable. Was this pilgrimage a success, a disaster, a divine obligation fulfilled? Probably yes to all three. Obscure tidbit of the day. Returning from Hajj was often seen as a kind of rebirth. In some communities, pilgrims added the honorific El Hajj to their names, were offered better seating at public events, and sometimes came back with completely made-up stories about riding heavenly beasts. It was considered polite not to question them. You board a small barge again. The river is calm, but your muscles already know what's waiting beyond it. Dust, distance, and a horizon that doesn't move fast enough. The caravan is smaller now. Some servants were gifted to the Sultan. Some scholars stayed behind. Some camels. Well, we don't talk about the camels that were traded for imported raisins and a nice mosaic bowl. Historians still debate the exact size of the returning entourage. Some records say it was smaller. Others say it was just rearranged. One source mentions an unusually bitter camel that returned wealthier than it left. This is unconfirmed. Musa visits the Sultan one last time. It's a short farewell. Dignified, generous, formal. They exchange more gifts, just in case the gold hadn't circulated enough already. By afternoon, the boats begin to slip away from Cairo's edge. The city grows smaller behind you, not in size, but in voice. The noise fades. The domes blur. The scent of spice and smoke lifts off your clothes and drifts back to the skyline. You lie down on the boat deck, arms folded behind your head, and watch a gull float lazily overhead. The sun warms your feet. The water laps against the hull like a bored lullaby. Tomorrow, you'll be back in the desert. But tonight, the river rocks you gently one more time. History's quiet reward for surviving its louder chapters. The Nile lets you go gently. No drama, no whirlpools, just a smooth glide to the riverbank where the desert waits, patient as ever. You step off the boat and instantly feel lighter. Not physically, of course. You're still wearing 3 layers of linen and carrying a pouch of dried figs. But something about leaving Cairo makes the air feel simpler. The caravan assembles again, and this time it moves with the resigned grace of people who know exactly how long the road ahead is. You begin retracing the steps, the familiar oases, the same scrub-brushed paths, even the same camel that once tried to eat a curtain tassel looks at you like, "Oh, you again." Mansa Musa seems more reflective now. He still travels with pomp. Yes, the parasol is back, but his speeches are shorter, his gaze more inward. He doesn't walk slower, but he pauses more often, as if thinking not just about the road behind him, but the one beyond, even this journey. Obscure cultural tidbit. It was common among West African pilgrims to carry home small jars of water from the Nile or sand from Mecca as spiritual keepsakes. One nobleman famously filled 7 jars, each with a different type of desert sand, and labeled them with poetic insults toward his political enemies. History calls that multitasking. You pass a salt caravan again. The traders nod in recognition. One of them tries to trade a camel for a spoonful of Musa's gold dust. Musa politely declines, but later gives him a pouch anyway. Because of course he does. Historians still debate whether the return journey was faster. Some records claim Musa took detours to visit more scholars. Others suggest he was eager to get home and shortened his route. One scroll just says the return was quiet, but everyone had sunburns. You spend the afternoon beneath a sky so wide it seems to hold its breath. The wind rises, but it's a cooler wind now. Not sharp, not cruel, just tired. Like the rest of you, at camp that night, someone plays a harp-like instrument and sings a song that you heard weeks ago in a Cairo alley. It's slower now, like the version you sing to yourself when no one's listening. You lie down with your hands folded across your chest, stars above, sand beneath, camel nearby, probably judging your posture. Tomorrow, you'll reach the edge of the Sahara, but tonight, you sleep at its doorstep, wrapped in memory, dust, and the strange calm that comes only after gold has passed through too many hands. You wake to silence, not the heavy silence of a forgotten desert, but the thoughtful kind that comes right before a farewell. The caravan stands at the edge of the Sahara, preparing for one last long sigh across the sands. The camels are ready, or at least they look as ready as creatures who never actually look excited. You envy their ability to disguise exhaustion as stoic elegance. The caravan begins to move westward, back toward Mali. The dunes roll again beneath your feet like waves that forgot how to crash. The sun warms your shoulders. The wind brushes past like a long-forgotten acquaintance. Mansa Musa rides ahead, gaze fixed on the horizon. You wonder what he's thinking. Of home? Of the gold he gave away? Of scholars, prices, prayers, the Sultan's tight smile? Obscure cultural tidbit. Returning pilgrims often held communal storytelling events to share what they saw on Hajj. Some travelers exaggerated. Others described nothing at all, saying only, "You had to be there," which is, ironically, very modern of them. The caravan makes slow, patient progress. A few familiar landmarks pass by. The flat stones shaped like whale fins. That single, lopsided tree you once mistook for a person waving. Even the rock where someone carved what looks suspiciously like a frowning camel. You pause at a shaded rest stop for dates and tea. The tea is strong, bitter, and forgiving. It tastes like coming home. Historians still debate what Musa thought of his journey. Some claim he returned triumphant. Others say he felt regret over the economic ripple his wealth caused. Maybe both are true. Gold is heavy in all its forms. As the sun begins to sink, the caravan stops for evening prayers. You kneel in the sand. The wind is soft. The sky burns orange, then melts into violet. Someone sings a slow hymn behind you, half melody, half breath. You lie down in your tent, eyes barely open. The sand beneath your mat has warmed and cooled with a rhythm older than memory. Mansa Musa will reach Timbuktu in the coming weeks. He will build mosques, libraries, schools. He will reshape Mali not with swords, but with ideas and stone. And you will carry the dust of this journey on your sandals, maybe forever. And now, you rest. The desert fades behind your eyelids, its soft dunes folding into each other like pages in a forgotten book. The sky above is a gentle canvas of stars, scattered in ancient patterns no one remembers the names of. The wind has quieted now, no longer a force to brace against, but a lullaby in motion. It slides over your face, tucking you into the night with fingers made of time. You feel the weight of the days behind you, each step across sand, each glint of gold, each whispered prayer drifting upward like incense smoke. It presses gently on your shoulders, not as burden, but as story. Your breath slows. The rhythm of the caravan lives on inside you. The sway of camels, the murmur of distant drums, the hush of silk on skin. You're no longer moving, but your spirit still walks the path, worn, golden, sun-creased, soft. The world grows still around you. Cairo fades. The Nile rests. Even Musa's shimmering procession of generosity quiets down. A faint shimmer along the edge of sleep. Above you, the stars blink slower. One by one, they wink out, not disappearing, just dimming for your sake. Tomorrow will come. With it, memory. With it, history. With it, all the dust and wonder of lives passed across this earth. But not yet. Now, you're just here, in this quiet place, in the echo of a long journey, with the warm sand below and the night folding in, like soft linen. Breathe in, breathe out, and let it go. Let the camels walk without you. Let the gold rest in someone else's hand. Let the story float away on the wind. Sleep. You've traveled enough for one night.